depending on where you are, and welcome to this third and last industry talk of the 52nd edition of Vision du Réel and of VdR industry. I'm very happy again that we are going to speak tonight with filmmakers and producers. We had already one very interesting, exciting talk with Vitaly Mansky and Avi Moghrabi on Sunday. And on Monday, we had a talk with industry actors and players, including Tabitha Jackson and Carlo Chatrian. Tonight, again, filmmakers and producers at work, what happened in the past 12 months, what will happen in the few months to come, and we hope that it's just a few months and that after that we can stop talking about this thing altogether. I would like to wholeheartedly thank the guests that are all with us remotely and busy with other things and taking the time to have this discussion with us. I'm going to start, of course, with Myriam Sassine, who is a producer of Abbout Production. Then there will be David Epiney, who is a producer based in Switzerland from Alina Film, who is currently shooting, so is going to be exactly perfectly in tune with the topic of today, currently shooting in Spain with Elena Lopez Riera, who is a former colleague of ours from the selection committee. And Gaston Solnicki, who doesn't need an introduction altogether, who is a film director based in Buenos Aires and shot in Austria recently and is currently editing. I would like also to sincerely thank Francesco Giai from Venice International Film Festival, who kindly accepted to moderate this discussion, which I am sure is going to be really exciting. There is, again, as usual, the possibility for people's questions, both on Facebook and on the forum of the festival's internet page. So do not hesitate to go there and ask your question. They will be sent to Francesco. It's super modern everything, like highly technological. We're ready a year later for anything that can happen. I wish you all a very lovely discussion. Here, the festival is still ongoing. Tomorrow we are starting with the public screening, so we are super excited. And yes, I wish you all a very nice discussion and a nice evening. Francesco, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Emily, and it's great to hear at least you on the behalf of the whole community of Vision du Réel, which is gathering in Lyon, and we all wish we could be there, and we all wish to come back as soon as possible. So thanks a lot for the invitation. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to moderate this talk. It's a challenge also, I think, not just for me, but also for the speakers, because I all think that we were there a year ago, all together, most of us, for the first time, or maybe first and a half time, doing the thing that we do. So being together in order to help films to come to life in a different way. A year ago, Vision du Réel was one of the very first events in the whole industry to face the challenge of pandemic times, of Zoom, of co-production platforms, all of a sudden being totally online, which is kind of the opposite of the spirit of our industry. And a year after that, we are here. A lot of things happen. A lot of things haven't changed. A lot of the challenges are still there. And in a way, I all think we are kind of fed up with a lot of things that are going on now. But at the same time, I think we developed a lot of processes around the problem that we all faced in different moments of the timeline of the work that we do in different roles around the cinema. And so the challenge of this talk would be not to talk a lot about COVID or COVID-19 or whatever, Corona or whatever you want to call it, but rather talking about the things that we love, which is our work, which is what we do, which is the drive that we have that actually allowed us to try to challenge times. And so I think a lot the three people with whom I will share this hour, more or less, of your time, and I hope, sure, it would be interesting, enjoyable, and fun too, which is, I think, at least for me, is one of the very central elements of our work. I would start with this. For me, and not just for me, for a lot of people, cinema is the art of managing time, of managing space, and of managing relationships. And I do think that this crisis that we all faced really put in danger, put in crisis our very notion of space, our very notion of time, and also our relationships. So in leading this talk that we're going to do together, I would like to gain back a little bit our notion of time with the essential steps that we all do when we want to make a film, to make a film come to life. And the very first step, which is a little close to our situation, is the role of the industry, the role of all those places where we set up the financing, where we try to build a production around the projects. So let's say co-production platforms, like the place where we try to put together the financing, the creators, and the players to make film happen. And one thing it's clear is that we were faced to do this kind of events and live this kind of context in another way. Maybe things were easier, and there were more opportunities. Maybe we were not forced to travel, which is a big deal when it comes to putting together people in order to make films happen. And I will maybe start with Myriam. Myriam, as a producer, this question maybe is for you, not just as a producer, but I know you are directly involved also in another industry platform, really great one that it just happened, which is Beirut Cinema Platform. So we're talking about kind of a complex context in which building an industry platform that maybe with the online formula had another chance of having more people in an easier way. So maybe on the positive side, what changed for you as a producer and of some or as someone involved in an industry platform with the new opportunities given by this new way of doing things that we are doing?
That's a very good question. I would say, as a producer, I think I missed the real and physical co-production platforms. I would say what the opportunities that came on board is that I could do like things, let's say, because I was in my home, and there was not the frontiers of having to travel and lose time in traveling, and sometimes to set up to a new place, etc. And the co-production platforms that happen online were like limited in time and easy to access, like from a laptop, so you could do them more or less from anywhere you are. So I could be on a film shoot and be in a co-production platform in parallel, which was not possible when you would travel. And the meetings would be, very efficient, 30 minutes or 20 minutes, you enter, you meet someone, and you go out. So I think that was the advantage of having like more efficiency and being able to fit them in the daily life. But on another end, I think what we is this like networking somehow, is this connection, is this human interaction, when sometimes you would meet later in the lobby and start talking about what do you do in your life, and then discover you and the other person like share, let's say, a passion for horror films, and then start discussing another project than the project you were there for, like you are participating in the platform for. And that always opened up new collaborations and new possibilities that I don't think were possible in this online, because you are participating there with a project. Um, and and it becomes like very limited. You have to focus solely on your project and solely on what you need to do. On another end, like I recently organized the Beirut Cinema Platform, which was a co-production platform. So I used the advantage of the online. So what we did were, it allowed us to invite much more people than we usually invite. We used to invite like around 20 persons. Here we could invite almost 80 persons, and people were much more flexible in picking the projects they wished for, because they didn't feel the obligation of meeting with projects they were not really interested with. Um, and that allowed us much more fruitful meetings, because people met only with projects they wanted somehow to collaborate with, and it gave us also the possibilities of having much more people and much more fruitful collaborations and meetings. So I think it has advantages and it has also advantages, but I think everyone I talk to misses the human connection, like talking and seeing people and opening up other conversation and not being always super efficient.
Thanks a lot, Myriam. That makes me think I have to have Gaston jumping on board right away. Efficiency, it's a really tricky word. Being efficient, it's two sides. It can be really profitable, but at the same time, being efficient leaves a lot of things out of the table, out of the frame. And the quality of the relationship is something that it's really hard to describe, but at the same time, it's an essential element of the recipe. So in being a film director, in being someone who has such, like you, Gaston, such an open idea of cinema, a cinema that is really open to surprise and surprises and relationships and what comes from an open door, like Jean Renoir used to say. How was life as a creative person, as a director, in a year where those were really close were not that open, and things were so efficient, maybe too efficient?
Thank you, Francesco, for the question and kind introduction, warm introduction. Well, I believe naturally we are. Is my connection talking about doors good enough, or am I just a pixelated
Yes.
sound? Thank you.
No, we hear you. It's good.
Good. Yes, I believe you're talking about the metaphor of doors. It's you set it up in a very open, in a very open way, and I will take advantage of this openness. I think we are living times of very strong hysteria and very strong uncertainty and angst. I mean, in Argentina, we are used to these dynamics since I'm born and since before, but I've never seen the kind of situations that are taking place since these last months, days as well. I tend to think that health and openness, thinking in the terms which is has been addressed in the last time, it is a bit of an abstraction, as the state is an abstraction in my regard. Perhaps because we've been used to very bad governments, it's so difficult for us to. This is an idea of Borges, by the way, that we've been used for so long to such bad administrations that we lost that it's almost an impossible abstraction, the idea of the state. So for me, this openness, which is the name of the game for cinema and for life itself, I relate to it in a very personal level, and I try to pass it on to people near me in a political way by the very gesture of making my films, but also in terms of how they are organized, structured, and financed as well. I believe this openness is it's an essential part of it. So I try to not stay still. I think that my idea of health, both on an individual or on a massive level, has to do with this idea of movement. I don't believe that health is defined by the absence of disease or this specific virus, but rather as a possibility of free movement. How this collides in a more in a broader interest than that of the personal, it's very complex and philosophical problem. But from my perspective, from the beginning, regardless of how much fear and uncertainty we believed, I early thought that the idea of being still was not a possibility, especially in the name of health, because to me health is movement. We are not designed to be still, not as a filmmaker, not as a human being, not as a son or as a brother or as a partner. So with the precision that it takes, this longing of precision, since you talk of efficiency, I like to think of precision in the oppose of fear, which I think is the last emotion before being going into an act of imprecision or an accident. This is the emotion that has been guiding me since this crisis became very apparent a year ago. And it took me all the way to Vienna, which is very far from Buenos Aires. It is close to me as of my recent film and recent relations that are also evolving in ways of finding natural partners that allow me to continue to engage in these very imaginative ways of production, because they are extremely strange in that we are still working without a script and very open to all sorts of uncertainties. I was in November in Vienna last year after being locked in Argentina, like all of us, for many months. And I went there for the first time with a much bigger group of people, with actors, with lights, even with children. And in many ways, it's the bigger film that I made so far because of the scale of people involved or even the budget itself. In a moment of maximum uncertainty, as Austria was leading the world of cases per citizen and engaged into more and more lockdowns and restrictions. And nevertheless, we managed to come out of it alive with a lot of footage. I myself got infected the very last night of that trip, which was very. I mean, even though it was did not infect my health in a severe way, I did lose my smell temporarily, and this kind of course, very unpleasant situations. But yes, just to sum it up, I'm trying to stay open and in motion, and because of health, our health.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Gaston. And David, as Emily, well, Davido, sorry, as Emily was saying, you are in the middle, well, at the beginning of a shooting, the new project by Elena Lopez Riera. This brings to my mind the fact that in the last year you've been working in trying to make this thing happen, this shooting. How has been this late development pre-production phase compared to the ones that you've done before? I would really like to know this, your point of view. What comes before production, which is basically what you've been doing in the last year before the highly anticipated shooting that you live in now?
Yes. Well, I mean, it's new for everyone, so nobody has experience in that. So we have to face, I mean, in the daily life of the shooting, of the development of the casting, problems that before that nobody knew. I mean, it's all new for everybody. The previous year, we were in process of casting, which was a very long process, while casting with teenagers, and because almost 90% of the casting are teenagers, like 16, 17, girls and boys. So of course, while casting has to be done in institute, in school, in public space, in sport clubs, and kind of spaces that, of course, from like 3 times we had to cut, of course, this casting process because of the lockdown. And our casting director comes from France, and she almost got trapped without having plane to come back home, for instance. So a situation like this, I mean, from one day to another, we had to adapt and stop or restart everything. But I mean, we can manage it. We could handle it. It was not that bad. It was just slower, and you have to be more reactive. But I mean, that was not that complicated. Now we started shooting last week, and here come other problems. I mean, because just 2 days before starting, we had our main actress, who's not the real main actress, but an important actress. She's like 65-year-old, and she got COVID like 2 days before starting. So, of course, we had to reorganize all the shooting plan, and once again, it's being reactive, being able to change quickly things and to adapt ourselves. But it's not. I mean, how do I say? It was not expensive. I mean, well, of course, it's money. It's extra money because all decision cost money. Of course, all delay cost money, etc. But it was not a disaster. I mean, money wise. But we just started, so we have 5 weeks left, so we can have more surprises yet. So I don't know what future will bring us.
Well, that's always this idea of openness and adjustment. A little bit one of the elements that we are raising in the discussion. What about your shooting, Myriam? So you had shootings, and I would like to know. So because of course there's a financial aspect that it's involved. It's an impact of a lot of things that you need to do that were not like that didn't happen before. But at the same time, of course, this can affect creativity, maybe. So how much you as the first person that the director relates to in terms of bringing to life and to production the ideas, how much did you manage to balance things, have like hard decisions to make in order to balance what was on paper, what was the idea, and the new challenges that maybe didn't allow all things to happen like there were plans, if there were any?
Like, already now, as I hear David talking about the fact he's shooting, I have anxiety like up in me. Because we shot a feature film in November, December of 2020. And I should say, like, those 2 months of shooting, I think was the most hellish period of my entire life, I believe. Of course, there was the whole COVID scare and protocol and the fear of contamination, but also in Lebanon, like, if we want to talk before the shooting, we had a financial collapse at the beginning of the year. Banks took over our money, so suddenly our money was blocked in the bank, including money that was meant for the film, and also including money from Lebanese investors that had been committed to also the film but wasn't paid yet. And then, we had to go through a lot of ingenious plans and have additional co-producers come on board and find solutions to them. And by the time we greenlit the production, it was on the 3rd of August 2020, and we had our first day of prep. The second day of prep went, and then suddenly the Beirut explosion happened. It was like 2 streets away from our office. The whole office got destroyed. Most of our team got their houses destroyed. Like, we had injuries. Our cinematographer had an eye injury. So it was like extremely traumatic, because at that moment and a bit later, I kept thinking, like, while I was walking, we were injured and finding, and I was thinking, like, what do I do now with this film? Because this film has been launched, the money has been, sent to our account, we found all these plans to make it happen, and now this happened, and what do I do now? And we took a bit of break, and then like 1 month later gathered again with the team and again with the director, who was with me in the office, when this happened. So we lived this very closely together. And then we thought, with the collapse that was happening in Lebanon and how bad things were going, that either we shoot the film in 2020 or we will never be able to shoot it, because it felt like the disasters kept coming and we needed, to hold ourselves and be strong for each other and figure a way out of this. And we managed to gather the team again. Like we delayed the whole shoot a month so people could, assess where they have it, calm down and rebuild and fix like another place to live, etc. And then we went again to the shoot. By this time there was the second wave happening, so it added like more stress on the COVID end. And until the day the shooting started, like no one really knew whether it was really going to start or not. So for around 36 days of shoot, I was living with this anxiety of seeing it all stop. And I had co-producers with me, and I was very grateful for them because they were living in other countries, like the co-producers from France and Spain and Denmark and Sweden and Norway. And each time, like, I was in doubt, I would call them up and they would tell me, like, you are so engaged in this that if you stop it now, the losses are gonna be so much bigger than if you continue and it stops. So just keep going. So I kept going, but each day the shoot was threatened, and really until the very last day of shoot we were still worried that we would not make it. And when it ended on the of December, and for all of us it was like a miracle. It was the miracle that happened this year of having this shoot finished. And not like we got three persons infected all along, and they did not contaminate anyone, but it pushed us to push the shoot each time a week to make sure that the infection had not spread. So all of that was like extremely like I felt my solution making and my finding solutions and being persistent, like it was really tried to the maximum. And I thought, okay, we managed, because the director was also very creative in finding solutions, and I was as well, and we were helping each other out. And I feel in the end we did not make too many compromises, and we did shoot the film that we were set to shoot in the beginning, but it was a lot on the cost of our like mental and even physical health. And today we feel, both of us, the results of that extremely strenuous shoot as we are going through the post-production. So I think it's very difficult times for producers out there, and filmmakers, because once you are in it, like you can't stop a film from, like, once you have launched the shoot, it's so difficult to stop it. And we also have no insurances and all of that, so it's a much bigger loss to stop, and we needed to find the strength to go on. And that was my biggest like questioning, like existential crisis after this shoot ended. It was like, do I want to be in a similar situation again, where I commit to make a film and then find myself stuck with it and not being able to just say goodbye, I don't want to do this anymore, I want to quit. I did not feel I could do that, because so many people were tied to me, like from people I had employed to people who had committed money, etc. So yeah, I wish, David, that everything will go well, and it could, but I wish you a lot of strength.
Thank you.
And really long holidays, because at some point they're gonna come when you're gonna deliver the films, that you get, in a way, you will be free from that process. But it's also true that you were saying a really interesting thing. I mean, we're talking about, I think, the shooting of Costa Brava, Lebanon, Mundial film, which is highly anticipated, and this also brings the fact that you put it as a relationship between a producer, which is also a creative producer, and its director. Because if you feel like you are in this together, and you're trying to figure out together how to do things, this is really something. I mean, it puts to test a really long-lasting relationship, I think. Gaston, about the shooting, I mean, we met the last physically, which was kind of a miracle, was in September in Venice, which in itself, I'm here at the Venice International Film Festival, and so I'm here also on the behalf of one of the very few festivals in the world that actually managed to make things happen, and we were really happy. It was really something. It was strange, really emotional, but it was great. And we met in Venice, I remember. And then you were on the shoot. We didn't have the chance to talk before about really what happened. So I would like to know also your take on this crazy different shooting that was the shooting by more or less the times Myriam was saying, which were the very first shoots after the lockdowns. Also, I'm asking, and I would like to know something about this from you, in being open in the process to what comes from the door. If you were ever like, let's say you have the doubt of putting the big ghost of the virus in the film. We are starting to see some films that were produced last year, where you feel a little bit of glimpses of COVID coming. Masks, not masks, what do? We want to set our film in these times or not? The great Radu Jude film that won in Berlin, it was playing, for example, on this kind of process, and it was shot more or less by that time. So yes, Gaston, the shooting and the ghost of COVID, in saying, should I bring it in? Should I invite him at the table or not?
Well, COVID doesn't wait for an invitation to enter into one's through the nose or through wherever it enters. And cinema has a rather special capacity to absorb all sorts of things and all sorts of molecules. So in that extent, my instinct and longing when shooting during these very climatic times of COVID in the Northern Hemisphere in November, upon the beginning of this second wave, if I recall, was not to make a COVID film, especially since I don't have a script and the preconceived structures that I'm working around. I'm rather trying to find these epiphanies. I like to call them epiphanies, very inspired by some ideas of Walter Benjamin and this idea of circles and cinematic materials that one can run into while looking for something else, even that can trigger these strong cinematic epiphanies. And later in the editing, I like to work around this and see what they need and how they work. So it is more for the timeless materials that I'm looking for rather than the immediate. In that sense, I was double frightened or double afraid of COVID. I did not want to film people with masks and to go after this kind of material or narrative. Nevertheless, filming in this period, of course, injects a very dystopic, horror, traumatic feeling. I mean, I even shot the very seed of this film, I filmed while being in the Biennale, not in Venice, but in Vienna, on 2019, over the last months before the world we knew was still around. And just by looking at these images together, even in the same timeless, strange city, former empire that Vienna is, you could feel how the same city and people, just people having smoking in a bar, seems like an act of resistance, a revolutionary gesture, which of course we would have never thought of this way. So definitely COVID, any film that like Myriam, which by the way I felt very close to her depiction of this nightmare, and at the same time this strength, this miracle that one must keep on. I mean, there are so many reasons eventually, not only in even a pandemic, that one needs, that one feels there might be a sense to finishing, to stopping, to interrupting a shoot, but it's so important to go on. It happened to me not in my shoot in Vienna, because when I was already filming there with a group of people, that was a miracle with all so many restrictions that we could still. When we engaged in that film, we didn't know if we were going to be able to enter into Europe, if the people flying from different countries were going to be able to enter, if once we were there, we would be allowed to be in the street or to film. So there are so many uncertainties on top of the very uncertainties already of making a film, needless to say, without a script. But somehow these limitations, I have the feeling, strengthen the film. My astrologist, who is an important oracle for me, an important player in these kind of decisions, when to travel and not to travel, or these kind of things. I don't do much surgery, but I do ask him important questions. He said, before I traveled, that if he could draw the sky, he could not draw it better for the film. And I said, get out of here. What are you saying? There's so many ways I can draw it. Give me a pen, I will draw it better. Just let me make sure I can go into Vienna and the people can go to Vienna, nobody will die. That's enough. I said, no, you don't understand. It's the most perfect. I said, you are. Get out of. I was upset with him. How can it be not? And then while we were there, doors started to open. Things that we would not have had access to places, and they were opening to us like the river to Jesus. I mean, literally, we find locations, impossible locations to stay, you know, to live in a palace, to film in a palace, to access the places at the museums and the cafes that I wanted to film without any people that I could not ask to move to the side, or, you know, the place was like Cinecittà. I mean, the very Cinecittà that Vienna is to me was literally a film set open to us. People who are frustrated and sad saw this very strange Portuguese, Latin American Portuguese, coalition of people going around trespassing in these places, and they somehow became part of us. The characters we found, different kind of people and situations that would not have been possible began to open, which of course was very reassuring and happy to the extent that I opened as much as to get the virus at the very last day. But of course, I assure you, my immunological system was devastated by the time I got the virus. So yeah, I don't know if this answers I don't even remember your question, but thank you.
You answered precisely. Just in being open, that's we are continuing on that, but also the very nature of the production. It's hard to laugh at these things, but at the same time, it's kind of funny that the kind of access to places that you can have with a really high profile blockbuster budget, you had it just for the sake of, your astrology was right. I mean, timing was right. It was a matter of timing, maybe, to open possibilities. And David, what's since we talk a little bit about the preparation, how your shooting is going, and I mean, you already told us we are facing a big dilemma, a big problem. Actors missing and getting contaminated. But did you manage in a way to get everything you needed in the preparation for Elena's film, or as I asked to Myriam, how it was your relationship with the filmmaker in order to always find a balance in between what is needed and what is possible, what is needed for the film, and what you can actually achieve practically.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we have a close relationship with the director, and obviously all the decision we have to make is we take them as an artistical point of view. I mean, if it's good for the film, then we take the decision for the film. And we had this discussion about filming people with masks, for instance, in the street, like Gaston was saying. Because although it's a fiction, very written fiction, Elena comes from documentary, and there are many scenes, many documentary aspects in the film, although it's very written. But for instance, all the scenes in the streets, for instance, do we put extra, or do we film the real people, but then with the mask? And what does this COVID thing into the film bring, or what does it quit? I mean, once again, in an artistical point of view. So her documentary background would say, let's film real people in the street, but with masks. But then I think with then the fiction side of the took advantage, and we finally decide not to include the COVID thing into the film. But that was a big decision to make. Do we invite this COVID thing into our films or not? We could have done it as well. I mean, this was really, yeah. I mean, and many people are doing it right now. I mean, including, I think this will be a period of time very particular in cinema history, because I don't know how long it would last, all this, maybe 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, I don't know, but it will be, I hope, a short moment in time where, in history of cinema, in which obviously some cineasts will include this in the films, and I think very interesting as a history trace of this moment. But yeah, we decided finally not to do this, but we could have as well. But apart of this, I think, yeah, I mean, we could prepare and develop the film as we wanted, slower maybe that if it were in a normal period, and a bit more expensive. But I mean, yeah, you have to move on, and to continue filming. We cannot just stop and wait until it's done. I mean, we can wait for I don't know how many times, but that was not an option for us.
Stopping was not an option.
No, stopping is not an option. Of course not. Of course not. Of course not.
And
yeah, that's it. That it's movements. The movement that Gaston was saying in the beginning. I mean, we have to stay in this movement of making film, and but thinking as well. I mean, thinking how our way of making film can be different in this particular moment of time, but still making it. Yeah, I think so.
And if we want to still, besides the challenge in time, stick to time schedule of a project, even if it's really messy and there are a lot of question marks, at some point after the shooting comes post-production, and I know for sure that both Myriam and Gaston are deep in post-production. How things are going, because post-production, when it comes to co-production and international co-production, it's always, one of those things that put together different kind of countries with different kind of elements and also expertise. So I know for a fact that I can bring that country at the table because I need some things that a co-producer for that country can bring. And a lot of the cinema that we share here at Vision du Réel, or that we do, or that we support, is made like this. This scheme makes film possible, and this also brings a lot of the challenges, because post needs to be done in person, needs to be done in really close spaces, and it's really challenging. So since I know, Myriam, you are in post, and Gaston too, you're editing, maybe you have a specific strategy toward this. I will start with Myriam, trying articulate a little bit this thing, also compared to how many countries you were quoting in the credits, for example, of Costa Brava, Lebanon. A lot of countries involved, a lot of different things that each country brings to the table. How did you manage to do also this kind of balance in this stage?
When we set out to make Costa Brava, like back in 2017, we knew it was a film that needed to be a co-production because we could never finance this film alone. We knew we would need more than one co-producer. And also, not only for financing reasons, but also we knew it was an ambitious film and that it would require some talents that we did not have in Lebanon, and who would help us, get to the film we were aiming for and had ambitions for. What I did not expect at all is that I would have so many co-producers, and like many of them came from a place of need because I had to readapt and change and reshift things, and also because at one point we did not get the funding from one of the territories as was planned, and so we had to move on. And the thing, we got some of the money, but not enough of the money. So we needed to split the costs and really think about how we could work it. So now Costa Brava, like in terms of post-production, it's split. It's happening between Lebanon for part of the editing and the sound design, and then between France and Denmark for the VFX, and a bit of Spain. Then Spain, some of the grading is happening and some of the VFX. And Sweden, the music is happening there. So it was a really like a puzzle, but the pyramid you construct. And I would always I talked a lot about it with Munia, because every time I would tell her, listen, if we commit, for example, to doing music in Sweden, you cannot later come and tell me, I don't want this, I want to work with another musician. So each time it felt like a really big commitment, because we could not change, and because it was all financed with all the obligations of each fund, etc. And also like the creative requirements and the financial requirements. So I feel the film is like really a puzzle, and if I remove one piece or change one bit, it would entirely collapse. So this is one of my also nightmares. But again, it's a lesser big nightmare from the shoot, which I think was really the worst of the worst, because post-production is somehow contained. It's lesser people, it's closed spaces, it's the schedule could be delayed in case you have a problem or a travel problem or a lockdown or a new imposed restriction. So I feel it's more manageable, but maybe I wouldn't have said that if I hadn't been through the really nightmarish shoot. So now I feel this structure really gave us a lot of richness, because I feel the amount of people working on the film and the fact that they come from different countries and different cultures are really, like, I can see the impact on the film. I can see how rich it is becoming, and I really know that we wouldn't have been able to do this film by our own. And we're in a place of the edit today where we're really happy with it, and we think that, okay, we're managing to do the film that was in our head, and that was a very ambitious film. Like, the story, Francesco, but this film was set to be dystopia about Lebanon. So when Munya in 2017, we wanted to make a film about a country that had collapsed, and it was supposed to happen in the future, and then the future happened, and suddenly it was a film about our present. So also that we needed to absorb this, and Munia also needed to absorb this and do the rewrite so it would fit, because suddenly the dystopia she had written did not fit exactly with what had happened, which could not be, you know, not taken into consideration. And I think having so many people who were not Lebanese on board also helped us to keeping this, you know, a distant look and yeah, you know, a more general view, because we were so much in it. So I'm quite happy with how it's going, although like we have always this strong, this delicate balance we need to keep. And on the other end, like I have other documentaries that are in post-production happening, that are more contained, like where the post-production is either happening between two countries or either happening in Lebanon. And I can see how much easier it is, because it's like lesser people, lesser country, lesser people to manage, and like one mistake does not lead to an over budget of, you know, around 5,000 or 10,000 euros. So it's definitely less stressful to have less people on board, but there are also a lot of good things that come with that.
Yeah. And Gaston, now you are locked up in a way on a lockdown in the editing room also. And when we were here at Vision du Réel last year, you were pitching. It was really a nice experience, bringing also in Vision du Réel your idea of cinema in, let's say, a documentary context. But you were mentioning the fact that you managed to have a really group of brave people around you that supported you in terms of production. So I would like to know more a little bit about this group that you managed to have around you, and how things are going in this lockdown, let's say in the lockdown, which is always when it comes to closing the door at some point with the editor and try to give an order to all those elements that happened.
To find the order. Yes, well, to find the order, first you have to come to terms with the chaos, which is the story of my life as a very bad student throughout all of my early youth schools and mid-youth school and even university. I strongly believe my ways of making films in this very punk way, in terms of the overly exposedness to all sorts of uncertainties and the dangers that imply, has to do with some kind of damaged capacity through the years of school to do things the way they are supposed to be done, homework and all of these bad habits of bad education. In fact, to surround myself, like Myriam was saying, with a rather smaller group of people, not only in terms of the partners as producers, but even in the set, my films are always very small compared to any other shoot. Basically, my position is that usually films as most structures, buildings and cities as well, over-dimensioned, and then in order to sustain these unnecessary structures, a lot of damage and real chaos is put into place. So my approach, and that's the most documentary aspect of it, is to work with a really small group of people, which are usually people who I'm very close with. Along my reflections on this, it takes only one person to not have a clear sense of what is not one person not to be really out taken by different in different capacities. Not just a professional doing one task, but someone who has some kind of spiritual connection with the project and with and to create really a good group of people. For me, is the key of this economy and of this organization and dealing with these cinematic possibilities from my point of view. So in terms of production, I have been working with my dear friend Paolo Calamita, who was with me last year, and who in that sense is also not a very traditional producer, even though he does make more traditional financing and films than this that he engages with me. I think he himself was not fully aware of what was developing from between us as a partners in our first film, Introducción al Oscuro. I think it was more of a kind of natural support he was offering, and then he realized that an actual film was coming out of this, and this strengthened our friendship and relationship. And recently, after Neon last year, Susana Kirali became our new partner. In that sense, she's a really great person to have with us, because she's completely different from us, completely different. But at the same time, we're also friends and we're also close. And regardless of our differences, there's a bond that it's strong, and there's a lot of things that put us together. So for me, this is a really nice, natural, and also slow way of growing and finding these kind of partners for making these films that I make. At the same time, I myself became a producer for somebody else, my friend Alan Segal, who's behind one of these doors. I just locked him. Symbolically, he's editing. I don't think he's editing my film now. He's probably editing his film, which I'm producing. We got money from Jeonju last year. He was very fast growing, becoming somebody making films. He's coming more from the art. He edited my last two films. We're very close. He's a really great artist who has been doing these short films, and I suggested we try to, since I know the kind of support that it's out there for first features, that I thought we should at least do some attempts to present, to see if and we went very well. We got this money from Jeonju, which it's very little money for a normal film, and it's a lot of money, or eventually enough money for a film like this, with this approach, which I call, from this documentary aspect of production with small people that I was referring. So we just shot his film, and Myriam, like Myriam was saying, I also felt the most torturous time of my life, because I found myself being a producer, leading my film on the side, and facing all sorts of conflicts and struggles, regardless of the constraint of rights of this era. So now I'm in this double role, producing his film, which he's probably editing now while we're speaking, and also editing my film, which I'm very thrilled to be editing. And editing has always been very important for my films, because it's really the point where these structures come to life, and where you really see what's going on. And at the beginning of my earlier films, it was more discouraging, because it really took much more time to kind of start to understand what was happening and how to make them work. But somehow I believe something of this process, without always resembling itself very much, it's growing in a way that it's making at least less of a hassle, that somehow we seem to find the film more directly. I hope this is not a bad sign.
And thanks a lot, Gaston. And at some point, yet again, despite all the circumstances, films came to life, even this year, which was great. And there were festivals, and which are always the place where a little bit the birth of a film, at least the kind of filmmaking that we do, that birth arrives. And we have here two producers, actually, both David and Myriam, which had films premiering this year at Berlinale. And I would be curious to know your opinion about deciding to embark on such brave adventure that Carlo and the team decided to do, with this idea of having the festival more or less at the same time, not the traditional one in a digital way, but deciding to have outdoor screenings in the summer. And so splitting the formula in order to find a way to make things happen, despite everything. David, you were involved in the Andreas Portana film, which was in Encounters, and Myriam, you were producing Memory Box by Khalil Ajitomas, Khalil Joraj, Joan Ajitomas. So how were things with this? With this festival experience at time of COVID, everyone is trying to adjust. So even us as festival persons, we are trying to make things happen. Beside everything, that we need to change things all the time. So it's also for us a great challenge, and maybe not all formulas are good or are the best one or are the ideal ones. And I would be curious to know your experience in festivals. Also, festivals are the uncertainty in the festival circuit is giving shape to the future of your films, if it affects the future of your films, of course, your future ones.
Yeah. It's my turn or your turn, Myriam?
David, vas-y.
You can start, David. I need to think a little bit.
Of course, it's a bit frustrating because, I mean, you miss the public, you miss the audience, you miss the having beers with your friends, and with of course it's frustrating. But I mean, it's what we have, and I think the solution I found in Berlin was quite a good one. I mean, in terms of industry, it worked well for us, and that's my experience. I mean, I guess, as normal as if it were in normal year for us, at least. Now we'll see in June what happens, if there will be public screenings or not. I don't know, it's not really clear yet, but I hope it would be, of course, finally, no just presentation. But I guess it's more frustrating for the director, because he's like kind of his baby, and not to have this confrontation with the public, it's with the audience, very frustrating. But what we have now, and yeah, we decided to accept this, because also to support that organization, that decision to split the festival. I think it was good. It was a good one, and we decided to support this and accepting this invitation. Anyway, it was a bit hard not to accept, frankly, because you don't know what's next. We were not sure what Cannes would be, what Locarno would be, Venice. It's all in the air. So we had this invitation, although in the festival, semi-public, online. So yeah, we didn't hesitate so much, actually, and to accept. And for us, it was a good experience. But I don't know, Myriam, what was yours?
I wouldn't know if I would qualify it by good or bad. Memory Box was, for us, a very important film, is still, because Joanna and Khalil are the founders of Abbout, and they're the filmmakers, Georges Chouquer, he produced all of their films, and they hadn't done fiction in a while. So there was a lot of, they wanted to make a film that was very oriented to the audience, because they're also a contemporary artist, and they do a lot of exhibits, etc. So that was their big return to fiction, and a film that has been in the making for 3-4 years. And therefore, already it was ready to being, let's say, released by the second half of 2020, but as the festivals were going on, and it's a film that is very emotional, and that carries a part of our history, and that we wanted to share with an audience, because it's a film that triggers you on an emotional level, and we didn't want it to screen on we didn't want for people to have an individual relationship with it. That was back in 2020, and then time passed, and the COVID situation was not getting better, and Berlinale had seen it and really loved the film, and they really understood it, and we felt that they were the right people to go with, because, as you said, David, the future was uncertain. It wasn't clear that if we waited, we would get another physical premiere, and also the on an industry, on a financial level, the film needed to be released. It needed to the market, to be seen, to be bought, etc. So we accepted Berlinale's invitation, and we were very happy with it because there was the physical aspect involved in June, and which we hope will still happen now that also it's still very uncertain with the pandemic. But I must admit it was very frustrating for us, to have a film that we all carried with a lot of love and support, and we're waiting for this moment. Sometimes I feel we as producers and filmmakers live to this moment of the premiere, where you go and share the film with the audience and celebrate with the team and really feel like this is it, this is the finish line, and now we launch the film world and what happens. And we did not really get that because each one of us was in a different country, in a different house. It was like waiting for people to watch it on their laptops and waiting for people to write us. So it was a really different experience. The film was well received and there was good reviews, and we got very enthusiastic feedback from the industry, but it was really different from what we had imagined. But there are no regrets there. It's not, we feel it was the right place at that particular moment of time. But it is frustrating. I will not lie to you by saying that this is what we had wanted, but everything is changing and we need to adapt. And so I think Berlinale had a good adaptation model.
Yeah, also because thanks to a lot of your support and the support of a lot of other filmmakers and producers, the team managed to put up that almost looked like there was the festival we know, or at least the festival that Carlo was planning to do. And it was really such a high level that really was great for the festivals in terms of quality, but also showed something important, which we are saying also, David, which is the idea of supporting, also us as festivals in saying we need to bring you our films because you're part of the whole, of not just of the family, but the whole change that actually connects us, which is something really, really important. And if there's one thing for sure that this pandemic brought, is maybe this is the dystopia someone is talking about, is an acceleration in the digitalization and in the individual experience of cinema, more than ever. There was something that was already like another ghost looming around what is cinema, and then COVID just accelerated a lot of things, maybe or maybe not. And this is also a way of connecting festivals with what comes after festival, which is always distribution. So the idea of really reaching out to the audiences, maybe a lot of different audiences, the audience of the festival circuit, the audience of platforms, the audience of all those films that are lucky enough to be sold and bought and brought to cinema in a traditional way. And that traditional way has been really put to test. And we all wish that it will come back, but actually we don't know. So it's a big topic, and we don't have enough time, but like a feeling in bringing these things, all the things that we do in that schedule, in the time schedule, the traditional what that we know. How do you feel about having films released in such an uncertain and maybe new scenario, new times? Maybe Gaston also, I would like to know something about your experience also as a viewer, as a cinephile. Someone who's traveling a lot, watching a lot of films in festivals, or watching films in Cinematheque, or watching films in the cinema. All of a sudden, you realize you can have a lot, but at the same time, in a really different way, really frustrating way. And maybe David and Myriam also on your relationship with the distribution, what you expect, what's your view on that? Gaston, please.
I am very confident about the future of cinema in terms of the experience of the theaters. Of course, we are seeing a devastation of it as we know it. But I think overall, cinema, streaming, Lumiere, and all of these things that we have been taught about, whether it was going to be the Nickelodeon or what was going to be the more social experience, and then the Netflix, and also with the COVID. I'm sorry to make this very big cloud, but I do believe we jumped into assumptions too fast. Even in terms of cinema, it's too fast. 100 years is too fast. I believe that theater and cinema have a strong life ahead for the same reasons that it's been alive. One, the oral tradition. No other center in history has documented and has taken an art, has created an art, and that it's so representative of it. I believe as cinema, and not only the films it has created, but the experience of seeing them in theaters. And I believe we that belong also to generations that are closer to the Middle Ages than the younger generations. I think there's such a breach, and our capacity to, even when we talk about to film, I mean celluloid. I'm not saying that film's going back, or that. I mean, I don't have a comment on that subject. All of my films have been made digitally, and they would not exist, even though I was trained in the film world when I was studying. But it's not that I'm reflecting on. But what I'm saying is, the more Netflix and watching films on televisions and phones grows, I believe the stronger that cinemas will come back. The experience of seeing films as we have, as we were used to seeing before all of this started, and not only all of these, but so many of these things. So I personally, I'm not so concerned about that. Also, my films and their life is not dependent on the traditional, neither the streaming or the distribution. And none of my films had any traditional distribution. They exist because they can be seen in festivals mostly, and in platforms like Movie, which I'm so grateful that they exist and they are improving so fast. So I personally believe that somehow, if anything, capitalism is strengthening these irrepeatable, unique films. So my feeling is that more and more the very high, how do you say, the mainstream, I think it's more in danger than the crafted pieces of this world, whether it's cinema or clothing or food. I have a feeling that somehow capitalism is I don't know if it sounds a little silly to some people, but I have some kind of optimism in that regard. My pessimism is in all of the other subjects.
Which is great, and we should have
politics, rights, and the traveling and world traveling, which might not be so bad. I don't know. Perhaps it was not so good also that we were spending so much time on airplanes for our veins and also for the places we visited. So, but either way, I think it's so early to have any conclusions on this, any strong convictions. I have none, to be honest. But I'm optimistic about cinema.
Which is great, and it's good to hear. And we don't even have to ask to your astrologist, because I mean, you have such a strength in your heart.
He's
And
such a liar.
I completely agree with you. I don't know if David and Myriam want to have like one last comment on this one, which is great. I do know a little bit that you share that optimism in a way, Gaston's optimism.
Of course, yes. Yeah. I mean, you first.
Go ahead, David.
No, I don't know. Of course, who will win this game between platforms and cinema? And I don't know. I really don't know. Like everyone, I'm user of both of cinema and platform. Although I broke my beamer first day of lockdown, so I had problems to see films on platform, big screen. But But I'm optimistic in the way of, I mean, all the distributors we've been talking to for the film we're shooting right now, all of them were saying that now in October, November, there will be like all the film, I mean, like, how do you call that? I mean, all the film arriving together will be the war. But despite of this situation, I don't know. I'm not specialist in this of distribution, but despite of this situation, we found a distributor, we found a sales agent, and so I guess there are signs of hope in this, because otherwise we couldn't have found any distributors. I mean, if cinema was really dead, then so I guess I don't know really, but I'm optimistic, of course. Yeah, of course. Actually, currently I'm in Spain, and where all the cinemas are open for since October, they're all open. But the films, I mean, there are very few releases because, but that gives also the opportunity for more fragile films to stay a long time in cinema. That's good also as well. I mean, sort of an opportunity for the more fragile film that, I mean, wouldn't even have been released in normal times. And now, not only they are released, but they stay like 10, 15, 20, 10 weeks in cinemas. That's a good, I mean, positive thing. But of course, when it will be open, then, I mean, in all countries, then it will be the war, I guess. I don't know.
There will be a lot to choose.
Yes.
Or at least we hope. Myriam, one last thing from you.
On my end, I wouldn't go for the word optimist, but because also I live in a place where the hope feels like an unreasonable thought right now. But I do believe that if life goes on, cinema will go on. I believe like people are watching films more than ever. I don't think it's a threat over the film, like cinema as an art, as a medium, as a way of entertaining people. I think cinema is going through a crisis, and it has been through similar crises, like a crisis / big change. It was the same thing when, audio was introduced, sound was introduced, and it was the same thing when like television was invented. It was big moments where there was prophecies about cinema dying or cinema changing. But what happened is that it forced some people, like there were new players, there were people who managed to adapt and continue, and some people like didn't adapt and went either bankrupt or changed careers, etc. And I think we are in this particular time and space where there is like a major change happening to this world we work in, and that is our life. Because I think for all of us who work in cinema, our life and our careers and our work are so combined that it's difficult to separate them. But I think each one of us will find a way to move. I like either find a way to work with like platforms or reinvent something, or cinemas will come back, people will go. I don't think there's any certainty to the future, but if there is a future, I'm sure cinema will be part of it.
And Nacho, thank you so much, because if that's one thing that I will bring with me after this beautiful hour and a half that we spent together, is that you really have a strong power when it comes to adapting, which is something that is crucial when we need to ride the wave of life and ride the wave of also how life enters the movie set, which is something beautiful that always happens when it comes to cinema. It's a vision du réel in a way. and that's a great strength that you showed. So it was really, really good, because in a way we managed not to talk only about the virus, but we managed to talk about being, brave filmmakers and producer in challenging times, and interesting times is also quite always really challenging. So we need to get the best out of it with the hardest work and the hardest heart that we can put in what we do and what we love. I thank you so much. I hope it's been pleasant for you as it was for me, and I hope also for the audience that was home around the world. Digital is efficient, but yet again, it's quite frustrating. Digital consumption of cinema is really efficient, but it's frustrating, and it's so frustrating not to be together and to, continue with a glass of wine, because more or less it's that time of the day, at least on my side of the globe. And but we can do it at home, and even for you, Gaston, I mean, you can do it in any time of the day. I'm sure you're allowed. And thank you so much. Thank you so much, Myriam, Gaston, David. Thanks to the whole team of Vision du Réel, and I really wish to see you really soon live in person somewhere around the world. Thank you so much.
Thank
you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.